everyone, welcome back. I'm back at work. Fall break is over, which to parents with a lot of kids, I don't know if you can call it a break. It was not a break for me. I vowed that I was gonna finish this book by my little 1-year anniversary, which has come and gone. What's today? Which was 4 days ago. I noticed almost a year, so it was a year to the day of Ethel Kennedy passing away, which was sort of what kickstarted me doing. I thought about doing this channel for a long time, but her dying and me having that book, The Other Mrs. Kennedy, was kind of my like little cattle prod to start this channel. And I just saw the other day, almost, I think it was the 8th, so a few days, 2 days before the 1-year anniversary of Ethel Kennedy dying, Joan Kennedy died, which she's the lesser known of the Kennedy wives, I guess. She was married to my least favorite Kennedy, Ted. Ugh, God bless her. I guess she had a pretty significant alcohol problem. If you guys remember reading The Other Mrs. Kennedy, and if you have not, go back and do that. You'll be glad you did. But yeah, I can't imagine being married to that beast, but what do I know? What do I know? Anyways, so we're on the last teeny tiny little piece of chapter 11. You guys, we are almost there. We're almost there. So this last little piece is called Coda, the Data Spew. Libra, Don DeLillo's 1988 novel about Lee Harvey Oswald, features a character named Nicholas Branch, a retired CIA analyst tasked with internally reviewing the agency's conduct in the JFK assassination, once and for all. Okay, that was in 1988. We all know once and for all did not happen, because here we are many, many years later, and I don't think we know anything. We know more little facts, but I mean, nothing, no conclusions. Much speculation, but no conclusions. The assignment swallows him for 15 years. Sounds kind of like Tom O'Neill researching this book, right? The agency pays for the construction of a lavish, fireproof home office, which becomes to Branch the book-filled room, the room of documents, the room of theories and dreams. It sounds like Tom O'Neill's little studio apartment filled with books and books and books, notebooks filled with notes about the Manson case. He reposes in a glove leather armchair surrounded by shelves and filing cabinets bursting with folders, cassettes, legal pads, and books. Branch sits in the data spew of hundreds of lives. He comes to feel that the past is changing as he writes, and his ultimate subject, he knows, isn't crime or politics. It's men in small rooms. Although I had a sagging sofa instead of a glove leather armchair, and while nothing in my apartment was fire insured, let alone fireproof, I identified a lot with Nicholas Branch. I was immersed in records, voices from the past, competing narratives, complexity that sometimes seemed to multiply for its own sake. No matter which way I moved, the story shifted beneath my feet. I was a man in a small room, reading about men in small rooms. But where Nicholas Branch had the full backing of the CIA, I had only myself. As I worked to fill out my book proposal, and I hoped draw my reporting to a close, I had dreams of sharing my findings with the members of the Warren Commission, brandishing evidence they'd never been able to prise out of the CIA. But most of the commission's members were long dead. Gerald Ford wasn't, but he wanted nothing to do with me. I won't go on that tangent, but he did some stuff with some evidence, let's just say. Bert Griffin, who'd been responsible for handling the Ruby aspect of the investigation, said in a phone interview that my findings were very scary stuff. That's an understatement, don't you think? And that West's relationship with the CIA should be investigated. But he was long retired. If anyone was going to launch an investigation, it wouldn't be him. I had better luck with Arlen Spectre, then the senior senator from my home state of Pennsylvania. Late in 2002, visiting my parents in Philadelphia, I decided to see if he was interested in the papers I'd uncovered. Spectre had joined the Warren Commission as a young investigative attorney. He participated in Ruby's appearances before the commission. When Ruby dilated on his anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, he thought he had an ally in Spectre, one of the commission's only Jewish staff members. Spectre was also responsible for the Warren Commission's controversial single bullet theory. Yeah, the magic bullet that could not possibly, there's no way you could ever, like, how did they think they were going to convince somebody that a single bullet did all that damage to not only JFK, but also John Connolly? No. Which argued that one bullet had taken a circuitous route through the bodies of JFK and Governor John Connolly, who had been sitting in front of Kennedy when he was shot. This theory ruled out the possibility of a second gunman, and Spectre regarded it as gospel truth. He referred to it as the single bullet conclusion, which is so crazy. I'm actually reading a book on the side called, what is it called? It's not in front of me. Absolute Truth, I believe it's called, by Robert Groden, who, sorry, this is a side tangent, guys, but he worked basically with the film, the Zapruder film, and that was his specialty, was dealing with film, and he basically has it down to every single slide of that film, to the just microscopically detailed, and how there's no way that the kill shot came from behind. There's just no way. It's basically, like I said, it's called Absolute Proof, and that book was $100. I bought it. I don't know if y'all watch the Jess Cannell channel. She's great. She dives really deep into the Kennedy stuff, and I love it. But anyway, she actually spent some time with Robert Groden and his wife, and I got the address, or the email address, of Janet Groden, that's the wife of Robert. And he, he was there for the Warren Commission stuff. He was instrumental in the HSCA, the Assassination Record Review Board, all of it. Like, he's older and pretty frail, but anyways, I got her email address from Jess Cannell and ordered this book. It was supposed to be autographed, but it wasn't, but whatever. It was $100 for this book because it's out of print, and I could read it for you guys, but you can't do it justice, because it's the pictures, and it's literally, it almost looks like a high school yearbook. It's about that same size and thickness, but literally it's just pages and pages and pages of pictures. And if you have $100 lying around, and you're interested in the Kennedy assassination, it really is absolute proof that there's of conspiracy. Basically, it's basically proof that the kill shot came from the front, through the right, and out the back. And there's no way that could have come from the book depository behind him. I know that was a tangent, but it's such a great book. It's actually the third book in like a trilogy of his, and I have not read the first two, and I don't know if I can get my hands on them, but yeah, Absolute Proof. It is wild. So when I read this about the single bullet conclusion, no, it was not the conclusion. Far from it, far from it. I might be able to read some little snippets from that book, if y'all want. All right, so since his role in the commission had launched his career, Spectre had been unusually forthcoming about it over the years, eager to defend his position and to remind voters of his role in the seminal chapter of American history. Getting Spectre's attention took months. Through his aides, I wrangled what was supposed to be a 2-minute phone interview. He called me from the Senate floor. I laid out my case as quickly as possible, with background on West, his involvement with the CIA's MKUltra experiments, and his examination of Ruby. It says what was supposed to be 2 minutes, but how on earth? I guess any little bit you can get, especially if you're an investigative guy, you're gonna take, but how would he expect to get what he needed from him in 2 minutes? I think that would be tough. Well, let's see what happened. Okay, Spectre was intrigued. Our call ended up running to 20 minutes. Okay, that's interesting. Though he had no knowledge of the agency's mind control program, supposedly, or the congressional investigation into it, he seemed open to the possibility that West could have tampered with Ruby, and thus the Warren Commission's findings. Yeah, the Warren Commission's findings were, like I said in the last episode, I think it was the last episode, the HSCA, they wanted to corroborate what the Warren Commission found, but they just couldn't do it because it was just so far-fetched and inaccurate, and things have been changed. And gosh, if you guys, I wish I could show you that book. Like, just the fake autopsy pictures and stuff. Like, I mean, there's some pretty horrific, graphic autopsy photos in that book. But you see what was submitted to the public, and it's basically a whole back of a head. And when you see the actual photos, the whole back of the head is obliterated. So it's like, there's no way you could talk yourself out of that. Like, oh, we didn't know that was an accident. There's no way but someone with tampering with it. There's no other explanation. It's so crazy. Like I said, I truly don't believe we're ever going to know the actual truth about it, but it's a really good book. I wish it was still in print so all of us could just, get a copy of it, because it's that good. It's really good. Okay, onward, Becky, onward. Can you fax me these documents, he asked, offering to approach the CIA about them. I wanted him to see them in person. Once they were out of my hands, there was no telling where they might end up or be altered. And alerting the CIA to them right away might not be in the best interest of my reporting. So this is what he's telling Spectre. Spectre sighed. Knowing that congressmen usually went home for weekends, I took a chance. If you're going to be in Philadelphia, ... He had a squash match that Saturday at the Wyndham Plaza Hotel. He suggested I meet him there. His aide would call to set it up. Oh, so if the plot thickens, it goes from a 2-minute meeting to 20, and now an in-person meeting. So this is good for Tom O'Neill. Hopefully, let's see what we get from it. I was thrilled. A sitting senator, a key investigator for the Warren Commission, was willing to hear me out in person. I followed up with a fax sharing some of the New York Times reporting on MKUltra and more information on West. And then I got paranoid. I hadn't gone through every box of West's files yet. What if divulging my findings to Spectre jeopardized my access to those? Someone could get there first and remove anything incriminating. I could totally see that happening. I would have been paranoid too. I would have been making a quick appointment to get back into those records and get everything I could, because once this stuff is on the CIA's radar, it goes away. It all, so much of it went away. Anything damning, or a lot of things damning, just simply disappeared. Okay, let's see if he ends up getting together with Spectre. I'm guessing maybe not, but let's find out. But that was outlandish, I thought. I was flying back to LA at the end of the weekend. If I went to the UCLA files right away, I'd be fine. Even the CIA couldn't act so quickly. And yet the more I thought about it, the more distrustful I got. Yeah, I was gonna say, I wouldn't trust these guys. No way, especially just how sketchy the Warren Commission stuff ended up being. I wouldn't have trusted them at all. I'd be scared, to be honest. Why was Spectre so eager to see the documents? He didn't seem to care a whit about my credentials or lack thereof. And could it really be true that a longtime senator had never heard of MKUltra? That's what I was thinking. Like, how? I mean, no, I don't know. I'm not thinking so. Spectre was the chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the same group that had investigated MKUltra back in the day. So there's no way he didn't know about it. Come on. He had the power to open doors for me, but if he was bent on upholding the Warren Commission's findings, wouldn't he just as soon close those doors? Probably. I was overthinking everything and then overthinking my overthinking. At the end of the day, I decided to err on the side of caution and postpone our meeting. Maybe in the future I could have an attorney accompany me or some impartial observer. The next morning, I left messages at Spectre's hotel and with his press office. I was profoundly sorry, but an emergency had come up and I really had to leave for LA that afternoon. I went to run a few errands, trying to convince myself I hadn't made a huge mistake. To this day, I wonder about that. While I was out, the phone rang and my mom picked up. It was Arlen Spectre, sounding confused. Imagine his mom getting this call, like in person, like from a senator, not some aide or anything. That'd be pretty crazy. Having been briefed on my plan, my mom told Spectre I was on my way to the airport. Her feelings were mixed, but she told me later her son was important enough to merit a call from a senator on a weekend, but her son also made her lie to that senator. Still, it makes you wonder, like, why was he so itching to get his hands on this stuff? I don't know. Okay, Spectre was gobsmacked. So he's not going to meet with me? And these guys probably aren't used to getting stood up too much. I'm afraid not, my mom said. I tried to reschedule our meeting for years. When I finally got him on the phone again, I was so shocked to have gotten through that I realized I'd long since stopped preparing for our talk. It had been months since I'd rehearsed the particulars of West and Ruby. I was much less convincing. He wasn't interested in seeing any of my papers. That's interesting because he was super interested in the beginning. I just don't see where this all leads, Spectre said. That was a phrase I'd be hearing a lot in the coming years. And that is the end of chapter 11. Can you guys believe it? We finally finished. I think that was the longest chapter of the book, to be fair. But it was called Mind Control, and that's what everything that we learned about in the early parts of the book were, giving us the background for. Was this mind control? Was Manson innocent in all this? I don't think he was innocent in anything, but was he the perfect person to control the mind of and to teach others how to do the same? It sure does seem like it. And like I said, I can do a side journey down the MK Ultra sub-projects. There's 145 of them. And it might be kind of boring, but it's interesting, the stuff that the CIA wanted to do research on and get more information. A lot of it was LSD stuff or mushrooms, or some of it was so diabolical, you guys. Well, as if we haven't talked about enough diabolical things. But a lot of it was, the inducing mental illness, hypnotism. A lot of it was like magicians and sleight of hand and stuff, like David Copperfield type magicians. Basically, I think just trying to learn how to trick people and get people to do things that they normally wouldn't do, whether it was helped along by substances or just putting them in compromising positions, like the whole Project Midnight climax, where they put, these guys were with hookers basically, and the hookers drugged them, and the CIA assets, they were watching all of it go down through a two-way mirror, which is so gross. Ugh. But like I said, I can go down the list of them. Some of them are pretty boring, and a lot of them are kind of in the same category, I guess you could say. But it is interesting what they were interested in, and all kind of cloaked under, we're doing this to help figure out mental illness. Like, that's what they always do, and that's what makes it so evil, is they disguise it under something that anybody would be like, oh, you know what, that's a great idea. Of course we want to cure mental illness. Of course we want to, help people. But that's never what it is. It's never what it is. So anyways, that's the end of chapter 11, guys. It's 19 minutes now. All right, let's do the first section of chapter 12 too. So chapter 12 is called Where Does It All Go? And if you remember just a minute ago, that's what Spectre just said. I just don't see where this all leads. And then O'Neill says that was a phrase I'd be hearing a lot in the coming years. And I don't know if we're going to get any answers to that, to be honest, but let's dive into chapter 12. Okay, the first section of chapter 12 is called Writing the Music. Jolly West's MK Ultra letters were my biggest discovery, I thought. If there were an answer to that question of questions, how Manson got his followers to kill, I felt it had to be there. I marshaled my energy in the hopes of discovering that they'd crossed paths, or that Manson's enormous success in creating the family had some debt to the CIA's mind control techniques. Even if I turned up nothing, I thought considering Manson and West in parallel was a worthy effort. Theirs was one of the great non sequiturs of the 60s. Manson, the ex-con, the Hollywood striver, the oversexed, unwashed guru who'd been discarded from society, had used LSD to collect and reprogram his followers. In the summer of love, he walked the same streets and frequented the same clinic as Jolly West, the upright Air Force officer, the world-renowned psychiatrist, the eloquent hypnotist who wrote to his CIA handlers that there was no more vital undertaking conceivable than to dose unwitting research subjects with LSD and replace their memories. Let me just repeat that. There was no more vital undertaking conceivable. So there's nothing more important than that, to violate people's minds and, replace their memories with things that never actually happened. I will never get my mind around it, you all. Okay, so both men were moralizers, hypocrites, and narcissists, and both were determined to make their presence felt in an America they felt had gone rotten. On the stand at his own trial, Manson said, "Is it a conspiracy that the music is telling the youth to rise up against the establishment? It's not my conspiracy. It's not my music. I hear what it relates. It says rise, it says kill. Why blame it on me? I didn't write the music." On some level, he was right. I resumed work on my proposal, feeling that I had enough to make even hardened skeptics doubt themselves a little bit. So remember that little phrase. I had enough to make people doubt, to make hardened skeptics doubt. I finally finished in 2005. It came in at a whopping 80,000 words, as long as many actual books. On the merits of the proposal, Penguin Press agreed to publish the book. I was elated and more than a little relieved. I hadn't known whether any respectable publisher would vouch for a project that mentioned Manson, Jack Ruby, and CIA mind control in the same breath. Penguin's support was vindicating, and the advance payment it offered was more than enough to let me tie up my reporting. Or so we thought. That was in 2005, and this book didn't come out till 2019, I think. The complete manuscript was due in early 2008, a little less than 3 years away. Now all I had to do was finish my reporting and write the thing. The following year would be the 40th anniversary of the murders. I'd only missed my premiere deadline by a decade. But that had been a magazine story. This would be a book. I had big plans for the money from my advance, which was more lucrative than I'd allowed myself to imagine it could be. I upgraded my computer, junked my old Acura, and bought a used 85 Volvo for $400. Everything else would go back into the book. Although my friends advised me to buy property and take an exotic vacation, I didn't even consider it. I had at least 3 years of rigorous reporting and writing ahead of me, and more rabbit holes with no answers, I think. But money could help me accomplish what had been too costly or labor-intensive before. I hired 2 research assistants to help me get organized. They transcribed the endless hours of taped interviews I'd amassed, more than 200 cassettes by then, most of their 90 minutes completely filled. They helped me type out the handwritten notes on my 60 legal pads and 30 notebooks, and some of the passages I'd highlighted in some 300 books. Most of my papers were in one of the 190 binders I had, and yet I'd allowed a half dozen stacks of unfiled documents to grow to about 4 feet high apiece. At least they were separated by subject. Reviewing the massive material record of my work was unsettling. I was rediscovering the fragments, micro-obsessions, and niggling questions that had tugged me onward when I began my reporting. Many I'd simply forgotten about, others were unresolved and probably always would be. But a few started to tempt me again. This reminds me of when my kids clean their bedrooms and they get it clean, but they find all these things that they forgot that they loved, and in 5 seconds the whole thing is a mess again because they're back onto something that they'd forgotten about. Okay, it's kind of a weak analogy, but it does remind me of that. Now that I was finalizing everything, I had to be sure I hadn't missed a lead. If a doubt sat in the back of my mind long enough, I added it to my to-do list. Soon it was dangerously long for someone with a book to write. One of the most basic problems I'd had over the years was tracking people down. Many former members of the family had gone to great lengths to make themselves unreachable. and I don't blame them. They changed their names and severed ties with anyone who might have known about their past. At least the celebrities who'd said no to me once upon a time could be reached through publicists. Now I was looking for people who'd gone off the grid. I didn't necessarily want to force anyone to speak to me, but what if someone in the family remembered Jolly West or Reeve Whitson or any of the shadowy figures I'd investigated? What if, like the detective Charlie Gunther, they had something they'd wanted to get off their chest for 30 years? Some of my hostile interviewees had thawed when they saw that I didn't have the sensational, tabloid-style agenda that fueled most reporting on Manson. So I also hired a private detective, a retired LASO deputy, nicknamed Moon, who worked out of an office in Arizona. To this day, I've never met him, though we've shared thousands of emails and calls. Moon found people and police records I never could have turned up on my own. He participated in the LASO raid of the Spawn Ranch, and he reached out to other retired cops, urging them to speak to me. He also schooled me in skip tracing, the art of finding people who didn't want to be found. Ooh, that's interesting. Although I'm surprised, I'd be too afraid to do this job. Like, there's just too many dangerous people, especially people that don't want stuff to come out that they did. Could be pretty easily gotten made to go away, I think. Okay, before long, I was paying to access digitized cross directories and databases, including one called Merlin that required a PI license to use, which I managed to obtain. So Tom O'Neill obtained a PI license while he was doing the research on this book. That's pretty cool. Between the two of us, Moon and I located just about everyone who'd hung around with Manson, most of them scattered up and down the West Coast. I added them to my interview list, along with the usual mix of cops, lawyers, drug dealers, researchers, Hollywood has-beens, and congressmen. The extra help freed me up to do what I did best, dive into the archives. I had about a dozen places I needed to visit to fill in holes in my paper trail. There were old LAPD and LASO homicide detectives, district attorneys who'd offered to show me their stuff, files on the family from courts, police departments, park departments, and highway patrols that I'd persuaded the state of California to let me see for the first time. I mean, he must have been pretty persuasive. That doesn't seem easily done. Personal files from reporters who'd long ago tried to investigate the same stuff I was after, most of them hitting the same dead ends. My to-do list was now as long as it had been in the heaviest days of my reporting. So he's never going to get that book done. Well, we know he did, but we know it took another 10 years. And sometimes behind my excitement and anxiety, I could feel a lower, deeper dread. Even if I could strengthen the bridge between Manson and West, I didn't have a smoking gun, some fabled needle at the Spawn Ranch with Jolly West's fingerprints on it, or a classified memo from the Los Angeles DA's office to the FBI. I worried that I never would. The evidence I'd amassed against the official version of the Manson murders was so voluminous from so many angles that I was overdetermined. I could poke 1,000 holes in the story, but I couldn't say what really happened. In fact, the major arms of my research were often in contradiction with one another. It couldn't be the case that the truth involved a drug burn gone wrong, orgies with Hollywood elite, a counterinsurgency trained CIA infiltrator in the family, a series of unusually lax sheriff's deputies and district attorneys and judges and parole officers, an FBI plot to smear leftists and Black Panthers, an effort to see if research on drugged mice applied to hippies, and LSD mind control experiments tested in the field. Could it? There was no way. To imagine state, local, and federal law enforcement cooperating in perfect harmony, with the courts backing them up, it made no sense. What I'd uncovered was something closer to an improvised, shambolic effort to contain the fallout from the murders. I couldn't walk myself through the sequence of events without tripping on something. I was a lousy conspiracy theorist at the end of the day because I wanted nothing left to the realm of the theoretical. I was sure that at least one person had a better idea of the truth than I did. Before I went delving into any more archives or darting up the coast to confront former family members, I had to return a phone call I'd been putting off for years. I had to talk to Bugliosi. All right, that's the end of the first section of chapter 12, you guys. We're finally in the last chapter, and like I said, I don't know. Are we going to get any answers? Where does it all lead? I guess we're going to have to find out. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Are you guys excited to be done with this one? I kind of am, because not as many people have loved it, but I do think it's an important book. I think everyone should read it, just to know I don't know what you do with the information, but it creates so much distrust. And for me, sometimes I feel like I don't know if I believe any official story about anything anymore. Like, there's so much lying and trickery, and especially the CIA stuff. If you all, this is Project Chaos, which is a CIA project, but MK Ultra, which started out as Project Bluebird, then turned into Project Artichoke, then MK Ultra. I think that's the order of it. But there's so many of them. Operation High Jump, Operation Fishbowl, Operation Midnight Climax, Project Mockingbird. That's one that'll make you really lose your ability to think anything that we've ever been told is the truth. I don't know if it's good for our minds to do that or not, but I think the truth, I've been accused of being a conspiracy theorist, and I don't care. I don't know who said it. I think it might have been Tucker Carlson was saying that, basically being a conspiracy theorist just means you're educated. Like, you've looked into things and you're like, wait a second, this doesn't add up. Over and over and over, and so much crazy government stuff. And sometimes, they make you think, oh, this project came to an end in the 70s or the 60s or whatever. But I don't believe so. I think they might call it something different. Like I said, MK Ultra started out as Project Bluebird, then Project Artichoke, then Project MK Ultra, Project Chaos, all of them. It's like, maybe it gets bad enough when people find out about it and they're like, maybe we could call it something else, rename it, and just continue on. That's what it seems like. But I definitely think Project Mockingbird, where that's basically saying that it's not just the media, but I think it's movies, it's everything. I think we are totally brainwashed as a society. And yeah, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I think it's just conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's just been proven so many times. There's actually a YouTube channel called Proven Conspiracies, and it's pretty good. Like, again, it's all this stuff that part of me is like, once your head is out of the sand, you can't go back. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it must be nice to be blissfully unaware of any of this stuff that has happened. But no, I prefer to know the truth and, be knowledgeable about stuff. But it's frightening and it's horrifying, and it's horrifying to just the stuff that humans can do to other humans without seeming to have any sort of moral conundrum about it. It's not good. Anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying, and I'm not sure how many more pieces. Chapter 12 is not as long as chapter 11, but might take a couple more episodes. But you guys, please comment down below what you're thinking. And yeah, like I said, I gotta pick the next book. I got a couple ideas, but and yes, we did vote a long ways back, but mostly this is the book that won the vote, and not that many people, it's like the people that voted for it were excited about it, but nobody else was. So I don't know if I'll just go back to the vote tally, which I don't know what I did with the vote tally, because I did it in my old office, and as you can see, I'm in a new office, and I'm not sure if I can find the notebook that all that was recorded in. But anyways, I'm not sure if you guys want to vote again or if I should just pick one. What do you guys think? You guys tell me. There's a lot of, well, maybe not a lot. Priscilla Presley's back in the news for supposedly pulling the plug prematurely on Lisa Marie. And that was one of the books, the memoir that Lisa Marie started to write before she died. And her daughter finished it. It's a weird book though, y'all. It is written weirdly. Well, it's written weirdly because of the situation where Lisa Marie was gone, and she had started a book and the daughter had to finish it. But it basically goes back and forth between them. It's like, and the font is different. Like there's one font for Lisa Marie's writing and one font for Riley, her daughter's writing. So I don't know if that would be easily done. It's a teeny tiny book though. It's kind of sad because it's like supposed to be a memoir on the life of Lisa Marie Presley, and it's maybe a centimeter thick. It's just this teeny tiny little book. And I think, her life was probably a little more, she could have filled up more of it, I guess, more of an actual normal book size if she had lived to do that. Although she was pretty private, so I don't know how much we would have gotten. But anyways, that's one of the possibilities. I read this kind of shocking biography on Oprah Winfrey that I think you guys would like. I'm trying to decide if I want to go back to kind of my theme of outrageous women like Ethel Kennedy or Kennedy stuff. I mean, we did a whole book on Lem Billings, which was basically a Kennedy book. The first two books were Kennedy books. This one, I really do like the CIA stuff. I find it fascinating yet horrifying. So let me know what you guys think. All the books, you can go back in my playlist. It's not in a playlist, it's just in my videos of the books we voted on before. I guess I don't need to find the notes. I can just go back to my comment section from that. But I don't know. What do you guys think? We're getting close to the end of this one, so I'm gonna have to figure it out pretty soon. All right, you guys, I am rambling on and I apologize. And thanks for putting up with my lack of hair and makeup in the last video. I just wanted to get another video out and I had a little bit of time on my hands, so forgive. Not that this look is anything after a long day at work. Got some bags under the eyes and whatever, but anyways, like I said, I am rambling. I'm gonna cut it off there. You all take care. I will see you in the next one. Bye.